the perceptions of a generation to accept the next stage of a plan. He says now, he says, we've it down to every 5 years, because at that time they'd already started a lot of kindergarten techniques in the Soviet. And he found that if they wanted this child, who was brought in at 3 years of age, to accept certain massive changes in societal living, 30 years down the road, they'd start the indoctrination at 2 or 3. So that when it happened in their lifetime, they somehow expected it. It seemed quite natural. And the ones who would come in the following year into the same kindergarten at the beginning age, the starting age, they'd be taught incrementally a little bit more to the next step. And this is why we flow into the changes, massive world global changes, with no hiccups and interruptions, and very few people can figure out the whys and wherefores. Very few people really care. We've taken personal responsibility away from the public until now thinking for yourself is a burden. Worry is a burden. Why do you think there's so much worry in the world? Everywhere. It's the same worries, financial, marriage crisis, all this kind of stuff. And you wonder why everything's falling apart. Look at the indoctrination everyone is getting. In all age groups, all genders. Massive indoctrinations. They've grown up with it. Some of the biggest boys have written books on this and said marriage is obsolete. It served its purpose. And they gave us it in the first place. When the Roman Catholic Church first came in to Europe, that was the first law they passed when they had the Normans to back them with the sword. Marriage and marriage for life. Because it didn't exist as such in tribal systems. And to expect someone to be mated up with someone else at the age of 13 to 16 and mature at the same speed, in the same direction for the rest of their life, of course it's ludicrous, it's not natural. But they had to start a breeding program for the coming labor for centuries ahead, which became the industrial era. And people were literally picked by the priest. The local priest would suggest that Sally should marry Bert over there, and that was an order. And he kept tabs of who was marrying whom, and their offspring. Were they healthy, robust? Were they good serfs, good labourers, good workers? Were they slow? Were they quick-witted? The witted ones were generally taken off to become priests. So they were taken out of the fields and put in the monasteries, and they got their food and their drink and a lot more besides. The rest of them stayed as serfs. They had their little holidays now and then to relieve the safety valve, let the steam off, where they could be naughty for a day and then go back to being a slave for the rest of the year. H.G. Wells, one of the biggest propagandists for the New World Order and a founding member of the Fabian Society, a crown chartered organization, in other words, authorized to exist by the elite, the crown, supposedly representing the extreme working man, left wing. H.G. Wells, in his book The Open Conspiracy, stated, this is a non-fiction, most of his work was actually non-fiction, but no one wants to read that, it's boring, there's no thrill, there's no sex and violence in it, so they don't read the non-fiction. But he said in that particular book, it says, many will fight and die to stop the New World Order, never knowing, never ever knowing that that which they were trying to preserve was never theirs. It's just what the group they were born into became accustomed to it as familiar. removed what we think of as normalcy. We don't know what it is anymore. And now we're on a roll where all that it was normal for a few generations, that's only what becomes tradition, you see, is all in flux. Crisis after crisis. Men marrying men, women marrying women. Just before 9/11, a month before 9/11, they had a meeting of the international censorship committees for all the different nations. Censorship committees. Now you think your censor bureau for your country is to keep you squeaky clean and protected from profanity, you see. But no, their job is to see how much you can take by their constant polling. And they said at that meeting that now they'd won the battle for homosexual rights and lesbian rights, they were going to up the ante. Up the ante. Then the next following day, the newspaper in Canada and one in the States, two professors at different universities stood up, gave the identical same speech, obviously written by the same hand, identical speech, saying that bestiality would be next. Bestiality. Because once your idea of normal is thrown out the window, as the old song says, anything goes. And the more confusion and the more the speed, the rapid speed of change, the more confusion there will be created and the more can be implemented quickly. And that is what's happening now. The European Union had panels working in 1948 in secrecy, sworn in this international agreement not to disclose this to the public, that their nations would be deindustrialized, and then when the nations were joined, they'd be under a super parliament. And admitted that only a few years ago after the official announcement of the European Union as an organization under a super parliament. And it actually stated the public must not be told this until it is completed. A free society, eh? Now I can guarantee you this amalgamation of the Americas probably had bureaucrats starting at the same time in 1940 working on the amalgamation of the Americas. We know that Marx talked about the amalgamation of these three continents, you might say, or the Pacific Rim region as well. In the 1800s he talked about it. We're living through it. Those that want to believe this is coincidence should just go and spend their money in the local casino. How many coincidences do you need before you start thinking for yourself? We're watching laws being implemented, the same laws, on a national, international, regional, county, local level at the same time, same laws passed across the world. What does that give you a clue as to what is happening? Once the amalgamation of the Americas takes place, then they'll announce who is to be the kingpin for the Pacific Rim region. Australia has already been signed off to China, really, who will be the dominant region for a while.